Well then, let's just begin with the one you mentioned, which is Threads. The happiest film you ever will see.
Yes. Come with me and we'll go to a land of pure
annihilation.
Yes, I suppose that would work. Yes, Threads. So the first thing I suppose I should point out with Threads is that thankfully it's not a documentary. We have somehow so far avoided the sort of catastrophic nuclear exchange that causes the end of the world as we know it. I say this not to point out the bleeding obvious, but more as an act of self-assurance. It's the film introduction equivalent of sitting in a corner, hugging my knees, rocking back and forward and saying it's all just a nightmare. This is necessary because Threads, in very large part, remains entirely plausible and entirely terrifying. We have to cast our minds back to the dark days of 1984, which admittedly wasn't exactly peak Cold War tensions, but is certainly much more of a concern than it is now. We're introduced to Sheffield, at that point a major industrial centre of England, so thanks to Maggie Thatcher for keeping us all safe by destroying industry. Never forget. Anyway, there's also an Air Force base, so its guards still marked. We're introduced to Karen Meagher's Ruth and Rhys Dinsdale's Jimmy, young lovers contemplating marriage after an unplanned pregnancy, worrying about their parents' reactions and the slight working and middle class divides between them. While this kitchen sink drama plays out over a few weeks, we also hear diegetic news reports of rising tensions in Iran, a failed coup with Soviet Russia, remember them, and the US sticking their oars in, and some armed forces and having some boring old conventional weapons confrontations before some limited tactical nuclear exchanges. While Ruth and Jimmy are just trying to navigate their own lives, the geopolitics of it does impact them. Various anti-Soviet and anti-war protests break out, some led by trade unions, remember them, before being put down under a Government Emergency Powers Act. The government is also polishing up their contingency plans for what happens in the event of a proper nuclear war, with an expected breakdown of communications meaning an awful lot of power landing on the local council, which are a group of people that can barely organise garbage collection at the best of times, so I think we all see how this is going. Before long, the button is pushed and it's Holocaust a go-go. Focus remains split between Ruth and her family's efforts to survive the initial chaos, during which we'll see how well the government's plans hold up. Spoilers. Poorly, before taking a longer and admittedly more speculative view of how society, if you can call it that, will rebuild the ruins of the old world. Now, this has glossed over an awful lot of exceedingly miserable statistics and details, both for your and my sanity, dear listener, like a whole hour of chaos, depression, misery, horror, told in a way that makes it feel like this is a documentary of something that's on the verge of happening. Here's a film that ends on a rape victim giving birth to a stillborn baby and can't claim that that's the definitive low point of the film. Pretty low for sure, but there's some stiff competition here for most miserable vignette. Now, you'll have to watch it for yourself if you want the full effect and the latter half plot details, and I'm not recommending that you do so, not because it's not an extraordinary film, it 100% is, but because I don't want the psychic toll this takes on the viewer being on my karma bill. Threads is, I think, a unique experience, and certainly one that shows off the effectiveness on the medium when done right. It boggles my mind that this was a BBC film. State broadcasters normally look to keep populations calm and reassure them that the government has them covered, and this rather explicitly does the opposite. Thankfully, I did not see this on initial release, as it would literally have murdered the 5-year-old me, and it still does a pretty solid number on a nearly 40-year-old me. I've never really had to live with the threat of this sort of thing, living on the edge of your awareness. It seems like it would suck. This is about 1 million times more harrowing than you'd expect from a director that went on to do Volcano. Dreadful in the more traditional sense of the word. Yeah, hell of a film.
Yes. Also, Holocaust a go-go, my favourite boss from Space Channel 5. Yeah, it's a rather remarkable thing because, with the exception of one notable thing, nothing in this feels far-fetched. It is, in many ways, can't speak. Have become like unbelievable people attend to a film. It has a very, very documentarian feel. Well, in parts anyway.
Yeah.
It's a strange mixture there. It's kind of like kitchen sink drama, but with sort of somewhere between documentary and public information film, and the two are sort of spliced together.
Yeah.
Weirdly works.
Yes.
It ought not to. And I think they've made like a smart choice there. It's like, there's nothing remarkable about the people in it. That's kind of the whole point. It's like, here are some people, and there's the tension going on in the background. For most people, most of the time, it is just that. It's background. Nobody thinks it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nobody ever does. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. And yeah, there's just like, people, they've got their own their own problems to worry about, like Ruth's unplanned pregnancy and things like that, having to get jobs and just friends and just regular life, and all this is in the background, and then the whole world gets turned upside down by the statistics that keeps mentioning to, like, in the end, 210 megatons fall in the UK. Crikey.
Yes.
But yeah, it does feel, it's what's so key about it is it feels realistic.
Yeah.
For the most part, in terms of like what happens and the way people react, and then people sort of trying to organise the planning after it, but sort of being stymied by having not had enough time, and also every line of communication basically being broken.
And the realisation that there's no possible way that this could be prepared for.
No, absolutely no.
It is the end of everything. And the way that it kind of puts that through when these poor council people everyone's just trying to do their best, but there's just no way to square this circle. There's just nothing like enough resources to go around for anything. And it's terrifying because it feels very real.
There's a couple of statistics, and again, it's really well researched, and it's so highly regarded as being, like, by so many different types of scientists to have, like, this is really realistic. I was like, how to go? And there's no way to know, obviously, and let's hope we never find out. But they say you get the statistics thrown up on screen, like between 12 and 20, between 12 and 30 million people in the UK alone dead within the first couple of weeks, mostly from fallout. And then there's all the environmental problems that happen afterwards, but there's even, like, in the short run, there simply isn't enough food. And there's no way to grow any new food. And then first, you've got nuclear winter, and it affects the harvests. And then it says, too, the really shocking thing, because most people aren't ill most of the time, that's why health services work.
Yes.
Most people don't need to go to them. But when basically everybody in the country needs it all at the same time because a nuclear missile has just dropped, or several hundred nuclear missiles have dropped in the country. And it says that the entire health service wouldn't be able to cope with the number of people injured just in the Sheffield bomb.
Yeah.
Wow. So, it's horrifyingly realistic, and absolutely does not shy away from anything with people being burned alive, burned babies, rats eating dead bodies and things. It's not beat about the bush. It's like, yep, if this happened, this would be horrific, like beyond what you can imagine.
Yes.
And it's an absolutely absorbing film.
Yeah, you can't look away from it, even though you very much want to.
It's one of those films you probably couldn't use the word enjoyable about, but not everything needs to be enjoyable, but certainly it's worthwhile, fascinating, and terrifying too. I really like it, because even that strange mishmash, as I mentioned, of documentary and sort of drama, it does work. The only real problem I have with the entire film is the bit that within 15 years people have forgotten how to speak.
Yeah, that seems silly.
That's always bothered me.
I mean, I suppose it's trying to get home the point that there's not enough time to educate people, but people still talk. Yes, that's how humans work.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, people maybe not know how to spell or things. There's not a lot of time for education because everyone needs to be working the land all the time. But it's like, people will still talk to each other. That's how people learned languages for thousands of years. The whole writing of things came way, way later. People still speak to each other. So unless people don't speak, then you're going to have people just speaking normally. I mean, dialects might be different. You need to have different slangs and stuff. People will still speak, not in this weird, broken pidgin English that they're speaking in. That's just the only flaw I can find with this film. It's like, it's the only bit that doesn't ring true. Or people start speaking to each other. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's certainly getting more speculative as it gets sort of further out from the initial impact. But all the stuff before that seems just worryingly plausible, and all the more terrifying for it. It's still a film that did a number on me. I must have watched this 20 years ago or something like that, and when I watched it the other week there, I remember every bit as vividly as now as it did then. It's highly impactful and mortifying, really. as I say, it's hard to actually recommend that someone watches this because it's really miserable. But at the same time, it's incredibly impactful, and I think as a documentary, as a little sort of slice of where society was. I mean, imagine having to deal with thinking that this could happen at any point.
Yeah,
and still going about your normal things. I mean, no. An interesting little window into that aspect of humanity.
Yeah, it's got the point of like it's just sort of like imagine that this could happen, and like, how do you just go on and like if this could happen, like just what's the point?
Yeah,
I mean, you have to kind of immunize yourself against the idea of all this horrible stuff happening because you'd just be absolutely paralyzed otherwise. Like, what's the point? I may as well just stop now. We're all going to die horribly anyway.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And yeah, to think this is produced on a budget of £400,000 as a TV film to screen on BBC Two, one point in 1984. So ordinary, incredibly affecting and effective, and nothing like well enough nothing like well enough known, I think.
No. Hugely interesting, and I'm sure everyone that's seen it remembers it, but how well it spreads outside of Britain, I don't know. It's not something that really shows up on TV all that often, I guess, for entirely understandable reasons. But yeah, if you're outside of the UK, you've not heard of this, I heartily recommend you track it down. It's not that difficult, and give it a look. You won't thank me for it at all, but you'll probably agree that it was at least a very powerful and compelling film.
Absolutely. Yes, but just don't blame us.
It's not our fault. We didn't make it.